What is going on, YouTube? So coming back with my final college football preview of the day, and right now I will be doing the Minnesota Golden Gophers, a team that went 6-7 overall in 2015, 2-6 in the conference, good for fifth in the Big Ten West. A team that's looking to take maybe not a big step forward, but at least a decent step forward in 2016. They got one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country coming back this year for his redshirt senior year, and that's the first of my three key players, and that is Mitch Leidner. Hasn't really been talked about too much in this offseason as one of the better quarterbacks in college football, kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and I think he can be one of the better quarterbacks, not just in the Big Ten, but as I mentioned, in the entire nation in 2016. He'll need help from players around him. They don't have a whole lot of returning starters this year, but there is still an opportunity to do something special this year at Minnesota. And my second key player, Shannon Brooks, stepping in to the official starting role of Minnesota's starting running back this year. Really had a pretty good year in 2015. Averaged about 6 yards per carry, 709 yards, 7 touchdowns. Coming into his sophomore year, should be one of the better young backs in the Big Ten. Really didn't get much looks with Minnesota really until the fourth game last year against Ohio when they squeaked out a win. So my third key player for Minnesota is a guy that experienced a rib injury that knocked him out for the season last year, Jalen Myrick, who in my opinion, could be the best player along this Minnesota defense. A guy that is really floating on the cusp of being an NFL draft pick right now, and he's really going to have to step up big to be not just Minnesota's best corner, but like I said, one of their best defensive players this year. This is a team that's pretty experienced on defense. They are starting Keontae Harden at opposite corner. So not only is Merrick going to have to be good himself, he's going to have to be able to lead this entire secondary. I believe Ace Rodgers looks like he will be taking one of the safety spots, and then Delatavius McGee should be taking the other safety spot. So my first of two X factors for Minnesota is to be able to close out games this year. I mean, they were close last year to winning quite a few games that they ended up on the wrong side of the column with. Most notably, what most people are going to remember is the Michigan game last year. I believe they lost that one 29-26, and it was probably a big heartbreaker for a lot of Minnesota fans. TCU, another big game that they could not close out. There were a couple close games they did win, but more big games, losing to Iowa 40-35. This one's not as close, but Wisconsin 31-21 in a rivalry game that you had the ability to win still kind of hurts when you lose it. So being able to close out maybe another one or two of those games in 2016 will go a long way to having a much more successful season. Now, my second X factor is the wide receivers and tight ends. I mentioned this earlier with Mitch Leidner a little bit. I think he's going to need some help from the skill positions to be able to move forward and, like I said, really make something special this year in Minnesota. Mitch Leidner is the best quarterback they've had in a little while. And they're going to need guys like Shannon Brooks, Rodney Smith in the backfield to step up. That's not really what we're talking about, but Drew Wolitarsky, one of the bigger names at wide receiver for Minnesota. Rashad Still is going to have to step up big this year. And then also at tight end, Brandon Lincoln, I think, can be one of the better tight ends in the Big Ten this year. So talk about my trap game for Minnesota, and I think it will be Maryland. This is one of the games that they will be playing over from the Big Ten East this year, and I don't think Maryland and Minnesota have played as conference opponents before. They didn't play last year, I don't think. And that is one of the more sneaky games coming out of the Big Ten East for Minnesota. They also do have to play Penn State out of the East as well. And Rutgers, but Rutgers shouldn't be too bad. Maryland, once again, if you do not prepare for a guy like Will Likely, then he will hurt you very, very badly. So, move into my biggest game for Minnesota, and I think that will be Nebraska. Nebraska, a team that just whooped them really bad last year, 48-25, a game that really should have been a lot closer. The teams were a lot more evenly matched than the score said. Obviously, Nebraska came out and put the hurting on them, but this is a Minnesota team that should be able to compete with Nebraska for that third or fourth place spot in the Big Ten West this year, a goal that Minnesota should have well in their sights. If they're able to beat Nebraska, then that puts them right in that position with, I'd say, Northwestern to be able to compete for that third spot. At least that's what, in my mind, it's projected to be. So get into my record prediction for Minnesota, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a flip-flop from last year. I think they're going to end up going 7-6. I really think there's one point in the schedule after the Purdue game. They got a nice little stretch of 4 games, Maryland, Rutgers, Illinois, and Purdue, that are all pretty easy games. I think they can get to 7-2 at one point, but then the final stretch against Nebraska, Northwestern, and Northwestern and Wisconsin can really, I think, can really end up beating them up, and then I think they'll finish the season on a bowl loss. Have a gut feeling there. But that pretty much does it for my Minnesota preview. I'll be coming back tomorrow with, I believe it is Arizona State, and Kansas. So I got a wide variety of schools there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.